Oh, it gives us a bell. Okay, so now I believe we're officially recording,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
I'm
hey.
Laura Jane, and this is my new friend who I'm so happy to be here with, who goes by Rick or Richard Harvey.
Yeah, I'm kind of slippery like that.
Yeah,
Sounds Rick.
well, I'm like that too with my Laura Jane or LJ, but don't call me Laura. uh,
Point.
yeah. So thank you so much for being here. And I love how you wear your kind of festive head wrap too.
Yeah, I started wearing those when I was in treatment. I actually used to wear them when I was I used to be a pretty intense cyclist at one point in my life in my 20s, and I used to wear them then. But I began wearing them when I was 15 years ago when I was in treatment for brain cancer. And there's a big, you can't really see it now, but there's a bit of a scar on the, where they went in and took it out here. You can't really tell, but, because I've got hair now, but anyway, I showed you my scars. And
literally.
I
Wow.
like this one. This is one that the powwows, straight dancers wear these straight dancing type of dancing where they are, and this is a Pendleton headscarf. Yeah,
It does feel tribal. That's what I was noticing. It feels tribal, and I think that's why I like it. It does even give you kind of a medicine man look, which you really are. And I love that you've become that. And thank you for being willing right away to bring up that such powerful part of your story that I know that I wanted to be able to bring up as part of why I'm so honored to talk to you, especially at a time right now when we're dealing with things that are so scary for so many people, right? And all the worries and fears and just being faced with our fears so much. And yeah, like I told you, I'm always so impressed when I meet someone like you who's faced something like cancer, even brain cancer, which sounds like one that would feel pretty scary to most of us. And somehow you found your way through it and survived. And in that process, created some programs of helping others that now you've turned into books and classes and workshops. So that's pretty beautiful. And that really is like the ultimate shamanic expression, right? To like heal ourselves and through our own healing, create something that heals others. So yeah, but thank you for being willing to bring that up right away and share your scar even. Yeah, but I guess yeah, what do you want to say in response to just sharing that part of your story at this moment with who's watching?
Yeah, back when it was more visible, I used to tell people I was in this biker bar and, I just got into a knife fight with somebody. And
Nice. So you were finding humor. Because that's a part of that experience too, right? Not only the mortality fears.
Humor is super important. Yeah, it's especially when we're in trauma and or dealing with stuff like that. I was in the hospital at Kaiser for, it seemed like it was a lot longer, but I was only in there for about 4 days. I was always surprised that the televisions had all kinds of different news channels and very little humor, very little comedy. This is, you would think that they would ban the news and just put stuff that makes people happy and makes people laugh. Just get those brain chemicals going that are healing, the oxytocin and stuff like that. But I guess people have their choice of what they're going to watch. But I was actually today, I was having a little bit of a struggle. I talked to Laura Jane earlier. I talked to you earlier about the brain fog I had this morning because I'm on a master cleanse. That's one of the things that I do. I try to detox at least 3 times a year. I did that initially when I got through chemo, and a lot of different positive outcomes. But in this brain fog, through this master cleanse, I thought of a comedian that I ran into when I was going through my divorce about 6 years ago. Z Frank has a couple of, like, he has 3 different TED Talks, and he's got this goofy TED Talk that I posted this morning on Facebook, because I just really try and bring humor and funny stuff on, especially right now. So.
Wow. And yeah, I mean, and part of your story that I remember is that at some point you were living at a place where you were surrounded by people like you who were in the middle of heavy duty treatments, right?
Yeah.
And somehow within that you started to share, I think it was that because you had started to use poetry, right? And writing as something for yourself. And then you wound up starting to just share your poetry with the people that you were in the residential place with, and then somehow starting to facilitate their doing that. I mean, well, how, I don't know, were you using things like humor at a time like that too? I mean, it's interesting to consider what it takes to become that source of inspiration within that kind of situation. Do you have any reflections on that now, looking back, that like feel like helped you be that source and become that?
I think one of the things is being open to good advice, being open to good feedback from all different angles, not letting it dictate the way you run your life, but being open to it. At that time, my wife suggested that I should write. I was having a lot of trouble sleeping. I would wake up probably 8 times a night. I had a stack of shirts on the side of my bed. On the nightstand, I was downtown at the Kaiser apartment that they have for people who are very sick, doing different things. And they set this thing up for people who really can't commute to get treatments. And during radiation treatment, I was in this apartment complex and I couldn't sleep. It was hot, and I was on steroids because that's what they do when you have brain cancer. During radiation, they have to prevent brain swells with the steroids. So the brain swells cause seizures.
Oh, yeah.
So all that causes weight gain. I was up at 213 pounds. I'm about 5'4". I'd like to think I'm 5'5" sometimes, but yeah, that'll be posture issues. But anyway, I was holding a lot of weight, and I just, was sweating so much during the night. I would wake up probably 8 times a night and change my shirt and go out in the living room and sit. Try not to wake my wife up, and she suggested that time that I should write. These poems came through, and I was trying to process, and I just didn't know the poems were going to come out when I wrote, but that's what happened. And then my wife and some friends got together and put this book. This is the last copy of the book that I have. This is called Lemonade Notes of Cancer. They took 20 poems that they liked of mine and they put them in there. And there were, I think, 25 copies originally. And I gave most of those away and got a lot of positive feedback and came up with this. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. You answered your question. You asked the question.
No, please, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect flow. Is that a second version that you showed up that you had held?
And this is, I haven't printed any of these in a long time because there are other books that I'm going to show you in a little bit. Anyway, these poems helped me. I got help from healing through creativity. And then I would connect with people out in the hallways of this big apartment complex. And I just to support and check in with people. And eventually I began sharing the poems and found that the poems helped them. So I had healing through creativity for myself. And then I had healing through connectivity with this group of people and healing through service. Service is something I've always been connected with. I just enjoy helping people. It's one of the things that makes me tick. I think a lot of people feel that way. I'm not sure there are people that are less oriented towards it, but it's, we want to help people. Those of us who are into it.
Yeah. I like to think most of us, or maybe all of us, have that in us somewhere, but maybe not all of us, at least most of us.
Yeah, the credits of my work are healing through creativity, healing through connectivity, and healing through service. And it goes way back 15 years when I started doing this now and discovered it. Eventually that evolved into workshops. I did a workshop at Cedars-Sinai at the Outsmarting Brain Tumors Conference in 2008. I originally was diagnosed in 2005, so over 2020, 15 years ago. Went through all the treatments. And I also did there's a spoken word festival in Long Beach called Voices and Visions. And I did my first workshop in Cedars-Sinai in this Voices and Visions festival that they had in Long Beach. So that's how it evolved. I began writing, then I shared and connected with people. Then I found this affinity for service, and it was very helpful, and I just kind of grew into it. And I'm now doing workshops with people. I've done workshops with veterans. I've done workshops with cancer patients. I've done workshops with at-risk youth, and I've created curriculum around it. So it all started back then.
I love that too, right? Because you came from, perfectly also, you came from a career in special education, right? So
my career was in working with at-risk youth.
Okay.
Continuation school.
Okay, team. I guess that is a form of special education. Maybe I made that name.
So.
But different than we think. I think we usually think that means like developmentally challenged, and that could be part of that situation. But yeah, you're talking about, so you've been around people at risk, quote unquote, and in trauma for a lot of your life, it seems like, and been someone like offering resources. And then, I love that when you and I first met, we realized that we had such similar interests, and that you have this beautiful book and curriculum that you're helping bring to the world now that helps with young people. But could adults use that guide too? The one that's about social, emotional well-being and health. Is that something that adults can use too? I don't know if I've asked you that. Do you feel like it's geared towards
it is something that adults can use.
It seems like it is. It's this gorgeous book that's got all these exercises, and then I love it because it really affirmed what I have found too with a lot of tools that I really like to use and prescribe, like gratitude and mindfulness, right? And some of those things that I know that you have built in there, and tangible ways to help people actually bring that into their experience, right? And even make it a practice. It seems like,
I'm going to show that to you. Let me segue for a second before I do that.
Okay.
This is what happened before that. This is called 20 Poems, 20 Paintings, a Creative Warrior's Journal. And I built it around those tenets. The book in the curriculum that you saw, this one here, Dreamsmithing, a Creative Warrior's Dreamsmithing and Creative Warriors Journal.
So it's a journal, and is that a book full of journaling exercises, kind of a thing?
Yeah.
And writing exercises? Oh man.
A Creative Warrior's Journey. This one's the title is the journal.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I built. Okay, so each of those is around. There are 5 focuses on the original one. On this one, these are things that the way the poems came out. There were 5 different transformational domains, I call them, areas that came through, and they, kind of the different poems fit into them. The domains were overcoming fears, focusing on desired outcomes, living in the moment, and gratitude. Focusing, overcoming fears. Let me make sure I got them all. Let's see. Yes. Overcoming fears, focusing on desired outcomes, empowerment, living in the moment, and gratitude. So I missed empowerment.
Wow. Yeah.
And the way that it worked is I had poems that I wrote when I was sick, and then it helped me. And then when I went through the divorce, I was struggling with that as well. So I always wanted to do some paintings for the poems. I created paintings that helped me to process again. And it was kind of a redo of the experience I had when I was going through cancer. I found healing through creativity. I found healing in sharing them, connectivity, and then I ended up doing different things with them. I had a bunch of exhibits, and it was just, again, that process. So I wanted to share that process. I wanted to share that process as a process, not just as sharing my poems and paintings. Originally, when I thought of doing this book, I was thinking about doing just poems and paintings, but I wanted to share the healing process that I experienced. So those, I worked in those 3 tenets of healing through creativity, connectivity, and service. And I looked at those different transformational domains. So they're transformational blocks. There's like, this one is for prognosis, which is, you can't really see it that well, but prognosis is a poem talking about how my doctors told me that I had 6 to 18 months to live 15 years ago. And I created this poem. Let me read it to you. A very tough bubble can sometimes suddenly burst, leave us suffocating in the lashing gusts of probability, possibility, and mortality. Be careful, your words can smack the hopeful and immortal air past my microns thin, shiny, glistening, reflecting rainbows bubble, that the world and me want to see, want to be very tough. So that was one of the poems that I wrote when I was getting the radiation treatment late at night, not able to sleep. And then this is the poem. Again, you won't be able to really see it here, and this is a section in the book that has a place where people can respond, right, in writing to the poem.
Okay. So you invite people to write kind of in response to your poem, just as like a writing prompt.
Right. The whole thing is
I love that.
The book is designed to be co-created, which is the same with the curriculum. It's supposed to be co-created. Yeah. It makes more sense with curriculum, but this is a little bit innovative as a book. And then this is the painting I created about my bubble. So.
Wow. And again, I just think that this is so especially powerful for people to consider at this time when so many people are feeling so intense about their mortality, and even some of these prognoses we're getting, right? It's so appropriate, I feel like, to just symbolically, like what you went through and found these processes that helped you through. So many people right now are feeling personally just from, listening to the news and what we think we should be feeling. So I just feel like it could be very helpful and inspiring to others, especially now, who are having a hard time, dealing with things like a prognosis. So yeah, you having been someone who had a prognosis given to you, so you had doctors telling you that you were definitely going to die within 6
my
to 18
brain
months?
surgeon in our first meeting, when he was pulling the staples out, and I had this big chunky bandage over my head. There's a little titanium plate in there now.
What a time that you could be so vulnerable too. I just feel like, it's so powerful to hear this story. So go on. About like, even if science is telling you it's gonna be this way, or even if a doctor and an authority, that you still were able to have your own experience. So go on, whatever you want to tell from that.
So that's where that poem came from. There are 2 things that happened, actually. I just heard, just give me just a second. I'm sorry, but I wanted to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. It made some noise. When I was sitting in the CCU, the resident brought a bunch of interns through, and this is right after my surgery. And I had actually had cancer before this. I had melanoma. And
Okay.
metastatic melanoma is really dangerous.
Okay. So you faced cancer twice.
Right.
Jeez. Yeah. Yeah,
And
go on.
I when she was coming through, this doctor with her gaggle of medical students, she had all these people in white coats following her very worshipfully, and she pointed at me, metastatic melanoma, and walked through, and they hadn't even done a pathology on it. And that's because I had had melanoma before. They just assumed that the tumor was melanoma. It wasn't. And it was just devastating for me as I'm sitting in the bed. I literally have got, tubes hooked up to me to, I'm conscious, I'm aware, but I have tubes hooked up to me to make sure that I can, take, my bowels and such are taken care of. It's just like, that's where I was at, and still hearing that. And it was just really hard. And so that's where that poem came from. And doctors can be very healing, but they can also be very insensitive. And they're when they get full of themselves. And so, anyway, that's where the poem came from. And I'm sure a lot of people at the place in the apartment building could relate to this.
So somehow you found a way to think for yourself within that and decide that something else is going to be true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also, things that opened me up to healing, and people might want to consider this as their grokking or grappling on what they want to do on this situation, is, I guess, being open to different sources of information is good. Being wise about what sources of information, being open to it. I used a lot of different healing modalities when I was coming out, in addition to writing and creative expression and connecting and all that. I went to acupuncture, I got herbs, I was careful about nutrition. They wanted to put me on Zocor, which is a statin drug. It's designed to lower your cholesterol. One of the side effects when I was on chemo was my cholesterol went up. And I created a lot of different types of food to help me process the cholesterol better. I actually had this line of cookies in the place where we met at Viento y Agua. It's one of the first places I sold them. They're called Smarter Cookies. And I did all the stuff with oat bran and with grapeseed oil and all these different things that you can use to control your cholesterol. And just so there's that. One of the times I went to my acupuncturist, I had a substitute, and she had a spirit guide, and she asked if she could do psychic surgery on me. And I said, yeah, why not? It's like, I don't know. I was still on chemo. I was on chemo for 2 years, and I just was using whatever I could. And I accepted, her healing. I don't know that was what fixed me or not. I've never had a recurrence. I'm 15 years out. It's extremely unusual. But I was open to all different types of healing, and I did Tai Chi. I started studying to become a Tai Chi and Qigong instructor. Just a lot of different things, because they took out part of my brain. I had neural pathways missing. I probably still do.
Well, but luckily we know they're always growing and building, right? So, but you have been very proactive, it sounds like, in being solution oriented and doing things that even could help you believe, I would see too, that you're going to prevail, knowing that you are doing things that could help, even if it wasn't. But to go through chemo for 2 years, that's a long time. Chemo sounds like one of the more miserable experiences in life. Wow.
I had 1 week every month that I did it, and that week usually wasn't too bad. The week after was worse, and then things started clearing up, and I did things they probably wouldn't have liked, the doctors probably wouldn't have liked, but I took bentonite after the chemo. I wanted to get it out of my system. You know what bentonite is? Yeah. Bentonite is a clay that a lot of people use to detoxify their skin, but you can take it internally.
That's right. I do know of that. Okay.
It's very good at binding to chemicals. And so it was just, I would just take it. My chemo was an oral chemo. I would take the bentonite after. And it would help to, 3 weeks, in that 3 weeks, it would start to make things better. And I just made the most of my time. I mean, what I could. That's always been my approach. It's been kind of a mixed blessing because it's been hard for me to slow down and stop. That's one of the things that's been difficult for me because
right now, you mean?
Yeah. When I had heard that I had 6 to 18 months to live, I kind of hit the ground running. I mean, I was just like, trying to do so many things. I really didn't know how much time I had. So,
right. So you responded by just going forward, like, all right, well, I'm going to make the most of these. Again, I just feel like this is so pertinent to right now because some people in some ways may feel that way a little bit, like, do we only have months to live, or the other side of, are we going to be home for months, even things like that, which can almost feel like a diagnosis, right, or prognosis that's really hard for us if that's the worst that would happen. Yeah, I mean, so it just, to me, I'm still so impressed with how you were like thinking for yourself through this all, right? You didn't have.
Just went silent. Laura, your sound just went silent. I don't know if you can hear me.
I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I got a call, so it muted me.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's so powerful for people to hear from someone like you. So I don't know, if you're willing to share, I'd love to just even get even more to like how you're feeling through this and like dealing, how much, fear is coming up for you and how are you handling yourself? Does this feel like no big deal because you've been through so much? Or does it feel like even scarier because you've been through so much? I mean, having been connected to you these last few weeks, I feel like you seem like you're pretty steady and grounded through it, even as I know you're seeming very aware. But yeah, I don't know. Are you willing to share like how you're feeling and dealing through this at this time?
One of the things in my healing process has been when I started going through the divorce, I found meditation. I'd been doing Tai Chi for 20 something years and was an instructor, but I hadn't really been able to work with healing with sitting meditation. And the reason I went right there was because it's taught me so much about how to deal with things that I struggle with. Mindfulness processes and different ways of approaching the things that make me suffer. And an example this morning when I was thinking about doing this talk with you is that I've been on a master cleanse for 8 days and my brain at this point sometimes doesn't function the best. And I was concerned about it. And I remembered something that one of my meditation instructors taught us. His name is David Lee. And he comes to our Sangha in Long Beach periodically. It's always nice to have him there. And he talked about, and this is something that other teachers have talked about as well, is when you have something that's bothering you, and this is what I did this morning. I didn't know I was going to be able to do this. You can almost zoom back and come out and look at it. And when you come out and look at it, it gives you a chance to embrace it instead of be it, if that makes any sense. So
like to embrace a situation or a feeling or something.
Stressor, yeah, whatever the stressor is, you come back, you zoom back, and then you're out, and then you can go back in and you can embrace it. And so it's, you can give loving kindness to this thing that's causing the struggle. So that's something that I did this morning. But in terms of dealing with what's going on outside, I'm part of me is skeptical and a little bit inclined to push the rules a little bit. Like I've been teaching Tai Chi in the park. There are within the parameters. I mean, you can have 2 to 9 people. There are a lot of people who've probably gone to lockdown mode, completely into lockdown mode, and are ready to just hole up in their houses, and not leave ever. And it's sad, but even one of the city council people put out a letter that was not accurate in Long Beach that said that you are not to have allowed to have group exercise in reference to things like pickup basketball games where you're in physical contact with people or something like that. That's true. You shouldn't be touching people right now. You should be keeping social distance, right? But that doesn't mean you can't be with people. That doesn't mean you can't do things like, healthy choices like Tai Chi and Qigong, or whatever. Just
because you can have the 6 foot distancing too, right? Yeah,
people are doing it. I mean, the crazy thing is while they're doing this, they're every morning at Costco there are lines of people around it twice, and they're all packed together, and it's just like it's that. I mean, it's like anyway. I mean, it's just people just need to relax. I mean, even though I'm not really much of a weed person, I think America needs to smoke a joint. I mean, that's all.
So do you use your processes that you like share with other people, like your use of writing and painting and things? Do you use that like on a daily basis with yourself now, or just when you feel like you want to or need to? Or what does your practice life look like with those kinds of things?
Well, I used it yesterday in the Tai Chi and Qigong. I actually got to work with some foster kids yesterday, a couple of different groups in Orange County. And I began with gratitude process to get them get them to remember something that they were grateful for, and then bring that into their physical process. Try and get the somatics of the gratitude practice, the physical part of it. When they had something they could remember that they were grateful for, I asked them to feel it in their body, and I kept coming back to it. When I would teach them, I would say, okay, just remember the gratitude, the way that you felt. And I also talked to them in the beginning. This is something that one of the people I really think is great, and really a person to get information from at this point is Rick Hansen. Rick Hansen is a Buddhist scholar, but he's also a I forget, he's a psychologist, neuropsychologist. And so he talks about staying with gratitude when you have something good that happens. Like when we get done with this, I'm going to try and spend some time in appreciation, not just that we're having this great conversation, but appreciating that it happens, because we as humans, especially when we're like me, I mean, I hit the ground running, I'm boom, running, I go to the next thing as soon as I'm done, right? When I finish something, I don't even hang with it, or I didn't, before. Now I'm trying to spend more time with it, and that's what I was trying to tell these kids. It's like when something good happens, because they've had a lot of shit happen in their lives. These are foster kids now. They've been traumatized for sure. Just try and stick with it, because your default will shift gradually from going to fear to going to gratitude. Just a little bit at a time. This is something that he's been studying for years. When he was an undergrad, he found this when he was actually very young. He was 14, and he was at Berkeley, and he was very, like a brainy kid with, very young for the group of people that he was with. He began noticing when good things happened, if he just spent some time with it, his anxiety level started dropping. I mean, when he made that a habit. So that's something that people could do. They could do that. I bring it into my classes, and I actually do it in this is the book that you're talking about earlier, the curriculum. One of the first things we do in each section is gratitude.
So it's really getting them in a practice of gratitude, part of that program, because you've determined it's part of mental health, right? And and even healing. It sounds like you're even proposing and sharing that gratitude can heal like patterns of trauma, right? And even like rewire our brain from how it maybe has been wired because of trauma, right? That you can actually change that by using gratitude.
I'd leave that to the psychologist. I mean, trauma's I'd be reticent to comment on it, because it's so important to do it right. I mean, with trauma, I mean, I just know when I did a recent meditation instructor training, we had a trauma section, and it just blew my doors off. I mean, because it was so, it's like really the things that we, like when you're a yoga person, we all do body scans, that's part of our process, some of the things that we do. And understanding when you're taking people through a body scan that the first thing that you want to do is give them the freedom to choose how they're going to sit, how they're going to lay, where, if they need to leave their eyes open, an adult stare, if they need to close, if they don't feel comfortable closing their eyes because of something that happened to them, something traumatic, then doing a body scan could be torture. And so I just think that it's one thing that you can do to default. This is what I found through, what I'm understanding through Rick Hansen is if you spend more time with gratitude, it'll be more of a default than fear. I think trauma is somewhat different. I think it would help a trauma patient, but I mean, it would also have to be
it might be an
informed type of circumstance.
Like a gradual, respectful recommendation, right? Because you have to kind of be ready to go into gratitude on a certain level. But that's where I've found gratitude's been my biggest saving grace through this whole situation going on in the world. Just to every day be thankful for what I can be thankful for is really helping me a lot. And I'm sure it's because it's really determining my focus and how I'm feeling. And then it is exciting to know that now we know those things do boost our chemicals. I actually just made my video today about that. So it's perfect that you brought it up a few times about how purposely bringing up those good feelings, we now know actually strengthens, boosts immunity, and is really helpful in healing. So it's exciting what we can do with things like that, which have been recommended over the ages, right? And even beaten into us by our parents for different reasons. But it really helps. So it sounds like you've really built it in with yourself in just a lot of these even little mini practices, like after you finish something, before you move into your day with the next thing, you might pause to be thankful for that experience you just had. As part of a mindfulness meditation throughout the day, which I like that a lot. That's a really, I think the more that we can bring these things into our moments, right? I mean, it's awesome to bring it into each day, even. That's a big deal. But then when we even more bring it into our moments throughout the day, it can really.
It's interesting you brought that up. We must be connecting, because this is, I was actually going to talk about that. It's just I agree. I try when I'm out and about doing whatever right now or in, wherever I'm at, to bring momentary practice in, because it's really, if you're doing sitting meditation or qigong or whatever, maybe that's 24th of your day, maybe a 12th of your day if you're really putting a lot of time into it comparatively. But you've got the rest of your day, the rest of your time, and every moment is an opportunity for mindfulness, is an opportunity for awareness. And that's another way to deal with the stressors that are going on right now, because we have them, and if we can just stop and be aware of them, and then that, like I was talking about earlier, it gives you an opportunity to zoom back and look at it, and then come back and embrace it if you choose to. It's just, it separates you from that, I do want to say one of the things I'm seeing out there, though, just in general, it seems like people in the general population are somewhat, maybe it's because of the vibe I'm putting out, but people are friendlier. They seem to be supporting each other in a friendlier way.
Yes,
so
I definitely.
And be aware of that, when you're out and about, because people are kind of showing their good colors in most cases now, not always, but even all those people wrapped around the line in Costco are being pretty decent to each other. It's just, kind of, they're, even if they're in panic mode, they're treating each other pretty well. So that's encouraging.
Right. And that is a choice, right, to what you're going to notice right now, and to take time to pause on those kind of things, right, that even balance out at least all the other things we might be noticing or hearing if it feels like it's a lot of bad stuff for some people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like I want to ask you too, like, what would you say to people, like, if you're, you know, I know you have a son and they were like really coming to you, like with this fear about their own health and their own body, like, because you faced that so much with yourself and prevailed through that. I feel like do you have anything that you would share to people along those lines as far as like how to handle that? You know, just that like mortality feeling that could feel so overwhelming, and where it has momentum to it too, where it could just start to take you. I mean, I'll feel myself start to feel that sometimes right now, and I'm not even really feeling that actually scared of the actual virus for myself. But once in a while, if I even start to trickle into the mentality or the energy that a lot of people are feeling, it's like, oh, it's like feels like the worst rabbit hole ever, right? So like, how to, because I'm sure you're right, you could have, you probably did face some of that within yourself, having some of those hardcore diagnoses like you did. I don't know, do you have any words that you could share with others on that whole possibility within ourselves?
It isn't over till it's over. I mean, the reality is, at least the, you know, responsible health organizations, when they're posting stuff up or posting up, okay, this many cases. So there's like 500,000 people in the world with coronavirus right now. Last time I checked, there's probably a lot more now, but they're talking about how many deaths there have been, which is relatively small, and how many people have recovered, which is pretty large. So what I remember is there's an essay that I used to give out quite a bit. I always give it. I didn't used to. Anytime I meet a new cancer fighter, I always give out this essay. It's called The Median Isn't the Message. It's by Stephen Jay Gould. And it's one of the gifts that my brother sent me when I came home from the hospital. I think he's a public health researcher, and I think he was just trying to grapple what was going on. And he's all about the statistics, and the median isn't the message is about looking at the statistics of cancer survival. And the statistics are based on people. I mean, when they give you a range of time, like they gave me 6 to 18 months. Now I've probably completely screwed up all the statistics because I live so long. The statistics are based on how many people live and die, or how long they live and die. There's a bell curve. And the bell curve includes all the people who die, including the people who die from heart disease, the people who die from diabetes, the people who die from getting hit by buses, the people who die from a lot of different things, right? So when you're looking at the situation, I mean, when they talk about mortality or whatever, it's apparently a really hard thing to go through, this coronavirus, and it's very, dangerous for people who are health compromised already. But it is, if you look at the outcomes, probably the most scary outcome right now is what the effects are on the economy and how people are going to react to that. How people are going to react to that. I mean, they're already in this panic mode. So that's, I mean, but in terms of the mortality part, there are people, I mean, I don't want to sound flippant, but people are going to die. I mean, which sucks. It's just that a lot of people aren't. And the main thing is that at least the scare about the health part, be conscious, be mindful, be thoughtful of the people around you, maintain the public health recommendations. But in a way, I think of, just good self-care, but not in a crazed way, I guess,
Well, yeah. And part of that to me is to try to take care of the stress levels, right? And to keep an eye on how that has an effect on the body. Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of good resources out there. I mean, there are tons of online meditations if people choose to do that. A lot of people like guided meditations because it takes out it relieves of the chatter, the mind chatter. and people think that mind chatter is something wrong when they're meditating. It's not actually. It's something to be observed. It's another thing to be mindful of. Believe me, I meditate every day, and I got all kinds of chatter going on. And then I realized, like Tara Brach, one of my favorites in terms of, meditation gurus, I guess, or however you want to describe her, talks about being. I completely lost my train of thought.
Well, I could remind you of her name, but I can't remind you.
I know Tara Brach.
Oh, yeah. That doesn't help bring it up.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Just being aware of these.
Oh, then maybe the mind chat.
The word is, I think you've already used it once today, but maybe not. Or maybe you used it recently. You're in a trance. I mean, you go into these trances when you're meditating or when you're in your life. A trance is when you're thinking about that ex that, you had these things, and if they had this and they had that and blah, 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 blah. And then you stop and you realize I'm in a trance, and it's like, and then you go back to meditating, or you go back to your regular life. And these are things that, it's just a process. You get into trances, and then you realize what's going on. That asshole just cut me off when he was driving, or when she was driving. Well, maybe she was in a rush to go to the hospital. I mean, who knows? But just try and be aware of what's going on. Keep going back to awareness.
Yeah, right. And just that our tools like meditation help us even just check out what we are doing with the mind, right? And start to notice when we're doing that and getting entranced by things, right? Especially if it's not serving us. And I feel like what you were bringing up too is being in the moment. Some of your tenets or realms you were bringing up with your programs, where it just really does come down to being in the moment, right? And all these things we hear with all these traditions and philosophies, but right now that really is truer than ever, right? That we're realizing that's the best we can do is be in this moment and just work with what's true, right? And
part of being in the moment is also being compassionate to yourself. I mean, because whatever crap's going on in your head, I mean, it's like if something part of that trans process, like I said, your whatever X and whatever he or she or they did, it's just, it's a trance, and you may be thinking, wow, I should be sitting and meditating like I'm on some sort of mountain and total peace and quiet or whatever. That's it's just the stuff that comes up and you're trying to process it. So meditation is good, exercise is good, really good, keeping your body strong, taking care of your body with nutrition, both physical, food nutrition and mental nutrition. One of our friends, Jonathan Neal, talks about that a bit, mental nutrition. It's been a while since I've seen him talk about it, but he's talking about what stuff comes into, what you're putting into your head.
Yes.
Really,
I just made a date to talk to him next week to do one of these. So, right. And that's really what I feel like is so important right now, like what we're filling our minds with. It's always important. And how I see it as how we're tuning ourselves, all these things. And so that plays a big role, especially right now. Because I'll notice my days are different when, for instance, if I'm on Facebook just scrolling and seeing what people are posting in a way that, it's like, it's not serving me. I'll notice I have different days when I'm doing that more than when I'm not, right? So like we have choices in what we're filling our mind with, and it really does affect how we're feeling and even our ability to stay healthy and well. So it's a big deal. Ooh, it's 11:11 on our time clock right now. So do you have anything else that you feel like you'd want to make sure you get to share or talk about in our last few minutes here?
Well, maybe we can do something about the curriculum the next time. I can do a brief overview here. I mean,
for sure. Yeah. And I think that could be really neat to do Yeah, even at this time, maybe we could do that soon as a way to help parents have some ideas on how to help themselves and their kids with some actual ideas like that are in your book, right?
Yeah.
So that could be a
Just
cool way to
dedicate something to
spin
that.
this as especially helpful at this time as like creating resources and inspiration, right? So yeah.
Well, I guess the thing that really sticks out right now in our last few minutes is everything that I've done since I got diagnosed with brain cancer. I don't want to say everything that I've done in my life, but just most markedly since I've been dealing with all this stuff is one of my strongest, I think, tools or tendencies is to ask for help. I mean, I've gotten a lot of help from people. When I don't know how to do something, I ask for help. One of the things I see in kids that don't succeed in education is that one of the things they don't do generally is ask for help. I'm a teacher, and I've seen this. You know, the ones that don't ask for help really have a lot of trouble. Everything that I've done, I mean, I've got this book. I'll just, I mean, it's 124 pages of curriculum. I mean, that, goes on and on about how to, social and emotional learning. Everything that I've done here, I'm going to say I've been inspired by somebody or listened to somebody or got some help from somebody. I got a lot of help from the maker spaces in the library, which I'm really sorry are not open right now, because that would be amazing to have those resources, have people who help you do all this stuff. I mean, this was not in existence 6 months ago. I mean, the idea, the dream, the idea. So, I mean, and I guess that's maybe a good thing to finish on. Have it, like some sort of goal or dream to work towards and take steps towards it and make it happen. Just
yeah, that could really help us at this time to have some sort of direction, even if it's about what am I going to do with this month or these months of whatever it's going to turn out to be. Things like finding some direction within that, right? And deciding what you're going to do with that time. If you have, the energy to do that. I feel like that, always makes us feel better when we feel like we have a direction, right? And a purpose in mind.
Having a direction and being open to where you're going to get the information to get help. It's like that woman who did the psychic surgery on my brain. I don't know if it helped, but I was open to it. I went looking for help at the acupuncturist. I got help in another way. You never know how it's going to unfold. Yeah. I was in Viento Iagua, 3 weeks ago or so, and saw some interesting looking woman, and here we are talking, and we sat down and started talking. I had no idea that was going to happen. I just went there. Right. I went there because I like the vibe there, because it's a good creative vibe for me. And then look what happened. Here we are talking. Yeah. And we've, met up quite a few times since then. It's just like, you just don't know what's going to happen, but being open to learn and to grow in some ways, to me.
Yeah, right. And I love that you bring up how you found that and still find that reaching out and asking for help has been one of the most important things you've done and continue to do. And I've had that same thing said to me by one of my friends who is someone who's struggled with mental health issues and like written a play about his experience. But his message is that too, that I feel like, and right now I feel like that could be helpful for all of us to remember to reach out right now if we do feel like we need help, and to know that that's going to be helpful in our surviving and thriving through this, whatever that means, even if it just means someone to talk to, right? And then being open to where we might get support and inspiration too, like you're saying, to be open and reaching out for it, right? Both could be really important. Instead of doing the kind of what the social distancing isolation kind of feeling could feel the opposite. So it's probably more important than ever that we do that.
Yeah. And just be selective about where you get your information, and be, and actually, I mean, it's just like reaching out, getting information, but at the same time, or getting help, but just, investigate. There are things like Snopes out there that, are good to use,
right. Do your own research. Think for yourself, right? Think for yourself through it, like you did with your prognosis too, that you were able to see past a prognosis of an expert, right? And find and create a different reality. So there are things possible here. So what's a good way if people who watch this want to reach out and connect with you? What are some good ways for people to reach you if they're interested in finding your books and such like that?
I have a website,
Okay.
www.creativewarriorventures.com.
Ventures or adventures?
Creativewarriorventures.com.
Ventures, okay. Mm-hmm.
And I am, let me see.
And I'll put that in the content of the YouTube video too.
Yeah, there's also Creative Warrior Ventures folks, business page for Facebook. I haven't put that much effort into it lately, but if people want to contact me, Creative Warrior Ventures is a good way to find out about the story and what I do and the workshops. I haven't got anything up about the curriculum yet, but it's pretty close to being done. But so creativewarriorventures.net is www.creativewarriorventures.net, and I'll send you a link to all that stuff.
Okay, perfect, and I can list it below. Okay, well, thank you so much. I knew this would be an awesome conversation, and we'll have to do the next one soon.
Right on.
All right, thanks, Rick.
All right.
Be well out there. Bye.